Why do concrete surfaces flake? Flaking, or spalling as it's called, is a result of a deficiency of the concrete. Now, exactly which deficiency, we're not sure yet. There's a couple it could be, but it almost certainly relates to water. One way or another, this spalling surface deficiency is going to relate to water. Most commonly, it's from somebody who has troweled the concrete too much. They raise too much water to the surface, so the very top layer has a very high concentration of water, maybe even water pooling on the surface. That's terrible for concrete. When you overwater concrete, it massively compromises the strength of the finished product. Maybe you started with a mix that was adequately hydrated, but as you troweled and kept raising water to the surface, that top layer became very, very watery concrete, compromised in strength completely. So now we know why the top layer has failed. It wasn't as strong as it was supposed to be. It could be that just foot traffic alone is breaking the top layer because it's so weak. Or it could be that there's something else that's causing the spalling of this top layer of your concrete. A very common reason for flaking or spalling of concrete is when you use de-icing salts or when you have freeze and thaw conditions. Both of these things kind of go hand in hand. You might use de-icing salts in a cold climate application, and of course in a cold climate you can be dealing with freeze and thaw conditions. So freeze and thaw conditions, we have some water, it's still water because it's warm, it melts, it absorbs into the concrete surface layer because concrete is porous, but then it freezes. When it freezes, it expands. In cold climate areas, you're supposed to use air entrainment in concrete. It's supposed to put little tiny bubbles in the concrete, and this gives freezing water somewhere to expand that doesn't ruin the surface of the concrete. It usually works. It doesn't always work, especially with aging concrete. Another reason concrete might spall is the use of de-icing salts. So basically, we've got some ice. We put a whole bunch of rock salt on it and it melts the ice, but now we've got really, really salty water. The salt absorbs into the concrete because concrete is porous, and then eventually all that moisture dries up and goes away. A couple of days of dry weather, and now the surface layer of the concrete is entirely dry. So what happened to all that salt water? Well, the water component leaves, but the salt stays. Salt will expand and grow in the same way that water freezing will expand and grow. And the growth of those salt crystals has that same explosive power. The forces that are generated from freezing water or from crystalline growth from salt is extremely powerful, more powerful than the strength of the concrete. And so that's why you're not supposed to use de-icing salts on concrete, because you can end up with a situation where the salt absorbs in, the water evaporates, and then the salt crystals form, and there's not enough room for them to form, and so they kind of break and explode that surface layer. There are other reasons why you could have spalling or flaking concrete from like heat damage or other deficiencies with the mix design or placement, but these have been the most common reasons that you could be dealing with spalling or flaking concrete. I hope you found this helpful.